If you didn't grow up quoting SpongeBob, did you even have a childhood? While some characters were already featured in Nickelodeon's platform fighting game, this was just a tease for us goofy goobers. We need more. So what if SpongeBob Squarepants had a Smash Brothers? Let's create a roster of SpongeBob characters battling on Bikini Bottom inspired stages with iconic side characters as assists and DLC. Plus, we'll relive the best scenes in a challenge mode. Walk with me through this design, starting with our first fighter.
SpongeBob Squarepants!
He's the main character, which to me means SpongeBob is the first fighter everyone will want to try out. Like he'd be part of the demo version of this game or the how to play pick. So he should have an easy to learn basic toolkit. SpongeBob can have some karate chops and whip out his hydrodynamic spatula for more swordsman attacks and recovery options. Touching on his favorite pastime, we could have him bring out his jellyfish net for grabs. Being a sponge though, he should have a defensive ability to absorb hits. Another defensive move is his bad breath, which paralyzes his opponents as they question their existence. As an insulting taunt, we could have SpongeBob say
tartar sauce
or lash out a sailor's curse.
Nice day we're having, huh?
For variants, let's bring in quote normal SpongeBob,
Hi, how are you?
Dirty Dan, and this maid outfit that I feel like would be a popular pick. And in case you're thinking that I'm missing this other version of him, no worries, he has his own spot in the roster. Bringing in SpongeBob's final smash, we have the Goofy Goober Rock, where he shreds on his electric guitar, sending out blasts that disintegrates anyone it touches. Remember that episode where this dude tried choking him out? Kinda freaky for a children's show? Well, now you can, because we're bringing in the Strangler as DLC. In this 1v1, there won't be plot armor though to protect SpongeBob. For some health restoration, introducing the Krabby Patty. We have the Deluxe, which gives more health, a Pretty Patty for changing colors, and the Poisonous Nasty Patty. What other Krabby Patty flavors would you add? SpongeBob's signature stage is Conch Street, or as most people know, this residential street lined with our first three fighters' houses. Oops, spoiler. Might as well touch on his bestie next.
Patrick Star!
Another must-have for this roster is this lovable idiot who'd make a hilarious fighter. Patrick has the funniest interactions with technology, so let's use that in his moveset. Like we have the technology down special. On the flip side, he'll hammer down enemies with more primitive technology. Just like his brilliant pitch for pushing problems somewhere else,
And push it somewhere else!
he can do the same thing with opponents as a command grab. And as a special ability, Patrick can stick to the stage. For taunts, he'll furrow his brow because he can't see his forehead. Another taunt? What about... Only the real ones played that on a 10-hour loop. In Patrick's final smash, he's lost his only food, so now he's gonna starve. With chocolate smeared all over his face, he lets out a war cry before tackling everyone in sight. For an item, throw back to the goofballs gambling their lives by riding the hooks. Anyone who picks up this item summons a bunch of hooks that'll start to surface the longer players hang on to them. Bringing in some costumes, it's super important to have Pinhead Larry, Patricia, and this legendary look. Let's bring in his parents, Herb and Margie Star, as assist trophies. They'll arrive on stage looking for Patrick, but end up cheering everyone on as if they're their own children. Being just as clueless, they'll throw random power-ups that anyone can collect. Such loving parents. Not so loving is the next fighter who I'm sure the adults can relate to.
Squidward Tentacles!
Just hearing his octopus tentacles squishing all over the stage would be a satisfying sound. Squidward brings in his love for the arts in his moveset. His dreadful clarinet blasts are perfect for knocking players back or putting them to sleep. He can use his tentacles for some mid-range whips or charge them up for a spin. Instead of using it for art, let's have Squidward use his paintbrush as a projectile. It's probably for the best. Because he has a short temper, Squidward definitely needs a rage move like throwing a tantrum where he punches and kicks anything in sight. He'll bring his dance moves to the battle as taunts, from his elegant ballet gestures to whatever this is. There's so many hilarious moments where Squidward just breaks, so we'll need to have those as his hurt animations. For his costumes, when we talk about appearance, we've got to use a handsome Squidward. Just look at this perfectly sculpted face. Let's also rewind time growing out these luscious locks with young Squidward. How about that one episode where he was covered in cement and became smelly? For his final smash, it's opposite day. Players' healing and damaging moves are reversed. You know what's the best thing since sliced bread? Canned bread. I can see this item acting as the maximum tomato of the group. For the next DLC, this guy's probably just as aggy as Squidward. We have Harold, who shouts out this iconic line,
"How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?"
before him and a bunch of Bikini Bottom citizens riot and wail on a single player with the highest damage percentage. Get a grand tour of Bikini Bottom with this next stage. The fight takes place on a blimp as you fly over the town. Maybe you'll catch some special side characters down below. Coming soon will include his arch nemesis, but for now they got this queen of karate joining.
Sandy Cheeks.
To be honest, Sandy is the most obvious pick for this roster. She's crazy strong and has got her karate skills on Hall of Fame. It makes sense to bring in her Texas background, so let's have her close the gap with a lasso. And a fitting anti-air is her 10-gallon hat. For a musical taunt, let's have Sandy strum on her guitar as she shows some love to the Lone Star State. I feel like Sandy players would be sweats, and they'd all be using this flying down kick as a relationship-ending spike. Besides her astronaut suit, let's have the bikini, Scientist Sandy, and this Kill Bill-inspired look for outfits. Or how about this sort of disturbing one where she gradually sheds her fur? As a losing screen, the loss is just heartbreaking. She'll become homesick and will want to go... For Sandy's stage, we have to bring in her natural habitat, the Tree Dome, where you can play in all the seasons. And yes, you can play in winter, which brings me to her final smash. Based on this Mario Party minigame, players are gonna take turns removing patches of fur from Sandy. And to the unlucky player who wakes her up, you'll have to face her wrath. Sandy becomes She-Hulk and your life is basically over. Now, with all this talk about karate, we've gotta bring in the gear as an item. Any player equipped with these attacks with the power of karate. Master Udon joins the battle as a physical and financial foe. You'll see more about him in a bit. Before we face our first challenge though, let's finish up this row with...
Eugene Krabs.
The cheapskate has pretty trash mobility. You ever notice how fast his legs move yet he goes nowhere?
Could you be any slower?
But let's not downplay his Navy background, so he should be a powerful heavy. Let's have Eugene show off his first dollar as a counterattack. Anyone who strikes it triggers a powerful claw swipe fueled by its sentimental value. As a tilt attack, we're covering both directions, bringing in this confused meme that went viral in 2016. This makes enemies in his immediate area just as confused to stall the match's flow for a bit. Being the owner of the Krusty Krab, the dining area would be a super fun stage. We'll have popular side characters making their way between the cash register and their seats. If you want to keep the fighting outside, there's gonna be a different map for that, featuring Krusty Krab too. Speaking of the restaurant, remember that time when SpongeBob brought in Le Spatula and it ended up terrorizing the place? Well, that's a perfect item to bring into the game. Just like the Smash Hammer, running into players with Le Spatula knocks them back while flipping them like they're Krabby Patties. As a victory screen, Mr. Krabs is gonna pull out the world's tiniest violin, mourning all the players he just whooped. He could flaunt his money as a dancing taunt. With this option, players can spam
Money, money.
but the cutest taunt is when he becomes love-struck. Like, do you remember when him and... And if you don't know who I'm hinting at, I'll talk about her soon. Mr. Krabs' eyes turns into giant dollar signs in his final smash
I like money.
as he rapidly swipes up opponents' health like it's loose change, dealing massive damage. A must-have ult for Mr. Krabs is Robot Krabs, complete with this voice line.
Ravioli, ravioli, give me the formuoli.
And this more risque wear. To protect the customers of this precious establishment, we'll have this pair coming in as DLC, the Bikini Bottom Police. They're mostly fighting with batons, which while super fast, aren't that powerful. Now that we have our first 5 fighters, it's time to share the first challenge mode. After learning about the scam that is Karate or Kondo Island, you'll have to face the 4 floors of fear. First, we have the Tickler. His iron fingers will stun you, leaving him an open window for attacks, but at least you can hurl his weakness, jelly-filled donuts that randomly appear, for extra damage. Next up is Lip Service. Almost as annoying as Min Min, her range is gonna be the true test. At least you'll have a hairdryer to help weaken her lips, leaving them chapid. Making your way to what I imagine an average Smash player's room is like, it's time to face Filthy Phil. His odors are poisonous, and he'll have a lot of health. But other than that, this Jabba the Hutt won't be going anywhere. Finally, it's time to face Master Udon. Wearing just a Speedo while showing off his raging pecs, this is the battle you'll be forced to put some brain cells into. He's not super difficult though. I mean, we still got 4 more challenge modes after all. Put Udon in the soup and you'll be the king of karate. We've got 1 row covered, but there's still a buttload more characters and design elements on the way. It's now time for the baddies. If we had to choose one rep for this row, Plankton's gotta be it, and I can for sure see him being a lot of people's mains. Because of their long-standing rivalry, I think a classic matchup is him versus Krabs. So let's give Plankton some moves that'll make this a fair fight. He's super fast and can whip out his inventions for the majority of his combat. But since Plankton's a featherweight, I wouldn't say he'd be beginner-friendly. Bringing in his specialty food, let's use the different forms of chum as poisonous attacks, like the chum stick as a sword and burgers as projectiles. Thinking about Plankton's taunts now, having some maniacal grins and laughs suits him. But just as funny as him crashing out, so we've gotta have both. He'll also have the most diabolical insults as taunts. Throwback to the time he roasted this whole family.
Someone should put you in a box floating down the river, Grandma!
As skins, let's bring in his Roman dictator outfit, this bandaged look, a stealthy black bodysuit, and the magician. A victory screen for Plankton could be his version of the fun song.
F is for fire that burns down the whole town. Use for uranium bombs.
And on the opposite end, a losing animation would be him crying after failing to get the Krabby Patty formula for yet the billionth time. We're bringing in Mega Plankton for his final smash, which is an oversized tank of a machine. This gives him enough power to barge into any fight the same way he did with the Krusty Krab. The Chum Bucket helmet from the movie would be a wacky item. It'll give the person who activates it control of every other fighter. For a Plankton-themed stage, yeah, the Chum Bucket would be cool, but what about Planktopolis? We can have monuments being built around the arena as the match progresses. Now for our DLC, Patchy the Pirate and Potty the Parrot come together. Giving Duck Hunt vibes, we'll have Patchy using his hook for defensive attacks and Potty being brought in for offense. And because he's the president of the SpongeBob fan club, Patchy can use memorabilia for medium-range throwables. So now that we've talked about Plankton, it only makes sense that our next fighter is... You could argue that as Plankton's supercomputer wife, Karen should be grouped up with him. But I think she has more than enough substance going for her to get a spot in the main roster. I like the idea of having Karen's display changing as she gets hit, performing different moves, or getting a knockout. For example, a sad face as she gets hit that intensifies the more it happens. In terms of Smash fighters though, my first thought is to have her play like Rob. She's also used lasers in the show, so that's an easy ability to have. Since Karen can't eat but cooks all the time anyway, we can have her pretending to eat as a taunt. And just like her husband, for her final smash, we can bring in Mega Karen. This would be fun to see against Mega Plankton. We've already talked about the Chum Bucket helmets as an item, so let's switch it up with these candy bar bags. Whoever holds the bag is able to pocket projectiles to be thrown back. From the Salty Spittoon, we'll have Reg, the bouncer, as the next DLC pick. You can finally prove how tough you are when you're facing him. And speaking of this bar, the Salty Spittoon is our next stage. No weenies allowed on this one. And even better, we're going inside. With chaotic brawls all around, you'll never know which fight cloud will sweep you up. If this stage is too tough for you, I've got you covered with an easier one. We're moving to another classic antagonist next. This supervillain definitely fits the fighting game type. He has a really well-defined kit in the show, including lasers, a ray gun, flying, throwing his head as a boomerang, just to name some signature ones. A fun defensive counter for Man Right is his tickle belt that he latches onto fighters, catching them off guard as they're forced to the ground in uncontrollable laughter. For his final smash, we're bringing in the power of evil, as he calls on the Dirty Bubble and Barnacle Man to unleash an immature but devastating team attack. If the tickle belt doesn't suit you, let's bring in Mermaid Man's belt as an item. Anyone wearing this belt can shrink other players with it. We'll also bring in the Wumbo version that instead shrinks the wearer. Across the Salty Spittoon is our next stage, Weenie Hunt Juniors. We're going inside again, but with a much different environment. everything's gonna be brightly colored and these diner stools will act as throwables. You'll also see this animatronic server every so often making sundaes. Depending on how the match is going, it may also call you a weenie. Think Weenie Hut Juniors isn't a good fit? Well, good thing there's the rest of the franchise to choose from as well. Our next assist trophy, not given an official name, I'll call him Incidental 6 for now, but you know him from some of the best memes. He'll run back and forth across the stage yelling for chocolate in a manic force. It's a trip to the skies with this next villain.
The Flying Dutchman!
He's not your traditional fighter, but I can see the Dutchman being a lethal one for those willing to experiment. To start, he's a larger character. As a ghost, though, he shouldn't be super heavy. I also think his main weapon would be a cutlass, you know, being a pirate and all. Tapping into the supernatural, he'll have the moves to match, like levitation and teleportation through a cloud of smoke. A tactical defensive move he'll have is the ability to steal people's souls, nerfing their defense. To annoy enemies, why not have him do some shape-shifting? And as a final smash, let's have him turn into a bomb that, well... In this signature stage, you're coming aboard his famous Flying Dutchman ship. I can see battles happening on it as it soars over Bikini Bottom. An equally frightening DLC is the hash-slinging... Wait, how does he say it? The mash-flinging, the hash-slinging, the sash-ringing...
The hash-slinging slasher!
A super scary fighter who kind of looks like an Among Us character. With red glowing eyes, he'll fight with his rusty spatula as a primary weapon. Getting some Young Link inspiration, he won't have a lot of reach. But he has ghost abilities like the Dutchman to add some spice to his playstyle. The competition is starting to look a bit tough, so to look the part, you'll need these anchor arms to fight. This item can be powerful, but with each hit, they deflate. Good thing they'll automatically inflate while you're idle. Now, saving the craziest fighter for last in this villain row is...
Doodlebob!
The evil caricature has arrived, spewing out attacks as random as his words. Everything about Doodlebob is unpredictable. Compared to SpongeBob, he's a faster fighter with a bit more strength, but he lacks the defense that SpongeBob has. Doodlebob is the perfect character to simply throw hands with, a brain-off guy. I'm sure people can get away with just mashing buttons with him. He'll use arm flails for wild attacks and for low hovers. He'll also bring in the magic pencil for drawing traps and throwables. For a spammable taunt, let's have Doodlebob raise the magic pencil and yell out some catchphrases. In a rage of gibberish, also known as his unintelligible rage final smash, Doodlebob cries out, stunning enemies before literally erasing them. I know this is a lot to take in, so to keep you grounded against all the chaos is the next assist trophy, Bubble Buddy. He'll absorb attacks for you, but he can only take so much before this heartbreaking moment. Since we're on this bubble flow, an on-brand item is the Bubble Wand. Using this wand blows out bubbles that players have to pop themselves out of, with some good old button mashing. I think Nick All-Star Brawl did a solid job representing Glove World, so we can use that as an inspiration for this next stage. Another way of showing off the park's rides though could be by making this a side-scroller, which brings players through the different attractions. Good thing we're already covering Doodlebob, because in our next challenge, we're fighting in a doodle version of Bikini Bottom against Giant Doodlebob. Think of the stage like the PictoChat one with this evil twist. With even more power in the magic pencil, Doodlebob draws objects that can act as hazards, explosives, and even health. It'll be one of those battles where right when you think you've got him, he's regained his whole bar back. Doodlebob also has the ability to summon hordes of doodle minions who'll be a quality distraction as he draws even more objects. So the key here is to destroy his pencil or else the battle may never end. 2 rows down and I've barely scratched the surface. Let's make more of a dent with these powerhouses.
Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy!
We're bringing these super grandpas out of retirement, but we shouldn't let age hold them back because these guys can fight with the strength of their younger selves. I like the idea of switching between the two during gameplay, and we can make it even more fun by giving them a few moves where they combine their powers for some tag team action. Playing as Mermaid Man, you're gonna use his utility belt, and besides the shrink ray option, it'll also cause mutations, fires, and snake summonings. Since Mermaid Man doesn't know how his belt works though, these attacks are all gonna be RNG. As Barnacle Boy, since he doesn't have a belt, he'll have to rely on his sulfur vision. In a side special, the pair hops into their invisible boatmobile to ram enemies. They also join forces to strike heroic poses as memorable taunts. Throwing it back to their younger years, this look would make a great alternate. In the superhero's final smash, it's time to fight The conch signal activates, causing massive shockwaves as the two deliver superpowered combos to each opponent. We're going to the duo's hideout for this next stage, the Murmur. This sea cave holds the wall of superhero super gadgetry. They'll drop these items as the match goes on. You'll also be able to see the villains they faced as they're frozen in display cases. Previously, we've touched on Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's arch nemesis, and we'll be covering another one soon. For now, as an assist trophy, we have the Atomic Flounder. He'll use his radioactive powers, including energy coming from his mouth, and anyone who makes contact with him becomes mutated, silencing their special attacks the entire time he's active. As an item, let's bring in this powerful one, the Diet Dr. Kelp. This gives the drinker a health regeneration buff. Just as strong as these lads, we're heading to the lagoon for this Chad.
Larry the Lobster!
The himbo Gym Bro is easily a heavy fighter. Being a bodybuilder and gym owner will have Larry using his weights for attacks. He'll be most deadly up close, but still has some range, like tossing an anchor for a more targeted range attack. And to show off his guns, he'll do some bicep curls for a strength buff. As for skins, let's give him different colored shorts, and of course bring in this look, Lifeguard Larry. You're gonna feel the burn with this final smash. Larry leads a supercharged workout session, which has flames and steam shooting out from his muscles. Anyone within range when he activates this final smash is burned to a crisp. A fellow anchor thrower and gym bro Don the Whale joins in as an assist trophy. The buff Orca is pretty similar to Larry in terms of physique, so his role is to continuously toss opponents off stage. One of the first episodes of SpongeBob was when he ripped his pants, so we'll feature them as an item which draws enemies in, making it easier to land your next attacks. For the beach vibes, our next stage is the Goo Lagoon, where visitors rotate between changing rooms and taking a dip in the lagoon, just very leisurely activities despite a whole fight happening in front of them. You'll also see a familiar ice cream vendor Lou who brings out cones for health. I'm sure you'll love giving a beatdown to this next villain.
Bubble Bass!
The word pickles was forever changed when this guy's episode dropped. The unforgettable neckbeard has a lot of weight on him and surprisingly strength. Shout out to them pickles. He can also run pretty fast, so I guess he'll have decent mobility. He also loves hiding things under his tongue, so we can use that as a grab. Bubble Bass has an intimidating personality, which we'll use as a passive. So every time he taunts, he'll slightly lower everyone else's defense. But we all know he's a lazy coward, so once you get him to 80% damage, his defense is lowered. Speaking of taunts, we'll have him say his signature line,
You forgot the pickles!
In his taste test final smash, Bubble Bass yoinks enemies and eats them before spitting them out because they didn't have enough pickle flavor. I mean, we're on the topic of food already, so it's time to bring in another signature item, the Krusty Krab Pizza, which restores your health and gives you a resilient status effect, making you immune to any status conditions for the rest of your stock. As an assist trophy, let's bring in the Health Inspector. He'll basically act as a meat shield. I mean, look at how many hits the poor soul survived in this one episode. Now it's time to bring in some royalty.
King Neptune!
He fights with a trident and moves at a hover above the stage. I guess you could say this represents his regal status. We've seen it plenty of times throughout the franchise, so let's give King Neptune multiple zap abilities, either through his tips or in his trident. I know he has hair in the show, but in the movie, this reflection moment was so memorable. Since it doesn't really make sense to use his head as a reflect because of the show's design, let's use his crown instead for this move. Also, let's include both looks for the game, with the show version being his base skin. King Neptune's final smash, Ruler of the Sea, has him fire a singular royal energy blast from his trident. This freezes opponents in place briefly before they're crushed. We've mentioned the Krusty Krab Pizza, but now we've got to bring in the vehicle which helps deliver that pizza, the Rock. First off, it drops out of nowhere when called upon, eliminating anyone in its path. And whoever drives it is basically invincible with the ability to run through other players. Just beware that they can knock you off the top. We have Frank, the recurring side character, joining as DLC. He's mostly known for his works as a lifeguard. Frank's kit, which is usually for saving lives, would now be used for attacks. And his unamused face is a top tier taunt after getting a knockout. This next tough guy is gonna hit like a truck.
Dennis!
Riding in on his motorcycle chopper thing is Dennis the Hitman. He's a no BS character and something about him just says S tier fighter. His strength isn't surprising. Look at how he rips these hillbillies' mouths off, or when he swats Patrick from David Hasselhoff's back. The way he got stomped on by the Cyclops though and survives, crazy survivability stat. To balance things out, will make him a shorter range fighter, and also slower because once you're in his sight, there's no running from Dennis. His signature move is his boot spikes. which are appropriately named since it makes for an ill spike. A super impressive ability he has is growing a mustache on command. This is the perfect taunt for scaring your enemies. And as a final smash, it's time to die, as Dennis cracks his knuckles in a tense cinematic before brutally beating everyone down in a mad combo. The very same Cyclops that steps on Dennis is going to be part of this crossover as an assist trophy. He'll do a mix of stomping and grabbing enemies, inescapable by the way, to turn them into souvenirs for his gift shop. He moves slow though, so it should be easier to avoid his attacks. In some advanced darkness, we'll find our next stage, Rock Bottom, featuring the famous bus station where a bus arrives yet departs every time a player goes near it. In the background, we'll have some eerie, ominous music to set the tone. This is a pretty dark segment, so for some comfort, we'll bring in SpongeBob's inanimate friends for comfort. The gang's all here with Chip, Penny, and Used Napkin. What more can you ask for? Hang on to these buddies because it's time for our third challenge. To match this theme of heavy powerhouses, you'll have to survive the Alaskan Bullworm. With the help of Sandy, the fight starts off with you facing its tongue, which is already hard enough because of its evasiveness, super slippery. But the fight's not over once you defeat it. The ground starts to shake as the fight transitions to the worm becoming enraged. As the ABW chases you, it's a side-scrolling platform mission as you dodge hazards. And for even more pressure, the bullworm spits out targeted bikini-bottom objects. Sometimes it'll even shoot out disoriented citizens who'll try to slow you down. You'll need to lure the Alaskan bullworm to the edge of the cliff, where it'll finally tumble into the abyss below, eliminating this threat once and for all. Row 3 was quite a tormenting row, so it's time to unwind with this next group, the Unserious Squad.
Fred!
When talking about the most popular SpongeBob memes, this guy's gotta be in the conversation. He's a pretty generic fighter since he's supposed to be a background character after all, but let's give Fred a variety of attacks based on the many jobs he has in the show. I know you're waiting for how I'd incorporate this, so let's have Fred yell, "My leg!" each time he gets dealt a 3-hit combo, or when he gets eliminated. And we could even throw in, "My eye!" as a bonus voice line. For his victory screen, let's have Frank walk super confidently through the Krusty Krab doors with this line,
Rev up those fryers.
and leave out what happens next. In his final smash, a giant version of Fred's leg appears that kicks everyone off screen in one sweeping motion. Moving on to this iconic DLC, we have Old Man Jenkins. The cranky guy's gonna use his cane for most of his attacks. Let's also have his many pets assist him, like Clams, Wormhogs, and Old Bessie. We are paying homage to the original him, Schmitty Werben Jagerman Jensen, with his soda drinking hat as an OP item. The hat protects you from any attacks, including the rock I mentioned earlier, to make you feel like you're number one. We've got a couple heavy girlies in the row, starting with
Pearl Crabs!
You can feel her coming from a mile away, being a whole whale. It's no question Pearl is part of the heavies. She'll have a passive that naturally causes the ground to shake within a short distance of her. Pearl's also a wee bit dramatic, so let's play into that as she cries a river, scooping up enemies. And this can be charged up to cover even longer distances. How about showcasing some of her athletic abilities? Being a cheerleader, she'll be able to pull off some nasty aerial combos with just as impressive recovery options. As alternates, we can change up her hairstyle. There's this fashionable pink prom dress, her cheerleader outfit, and her assistant uniform from Grandma's apron. For a stage, we're bringing in the anchor that's the crab's home. Let's do a cross-section of it like the Tomodachi Life stage, which includes all the rooms. The battle transforms to this chaotic high school prom for her final smash. There's gonna be crashing decorations, flying food, and panicking fish that are all damaging. For her 16th birthday, she got this once-in-a-lifetime performance, which I also swooned over, so let's bring that in as an assist trophy. The boys who cry serenade all opponents, leaving them in a loving trance, unable to do anything except enjoy the tunes of these heartthrobs. While our heads are still in the clouds, let's bring in the
Imagination
box. This could be the best or the worst item in the game. It all depends on how good your
Imagination
is. Our next fighter has a poop personality, but is low-key life goals.
Squilliam Fancy Son!
This bougie, successful, long-time rival has arrived. Adding to the must-see 1v1s is Squidward versus Squilliam. Squilliam's moveset is gonna be a little bit more sophisticated compared to Squidward's. I can see him using moves that flaunt his bouginess, like tossing wads of cash as projectiles. And as a satisfying losing animation, he'll have a heart attack. Just like that one time... Well, let me cover his final smash first. In his final smash, things get fancy as Squilliam rains down objects from his lavish lifestyle, covering the stage and exploding on impact. Now, let's talk about his signature stage. We can argue that his tower would be a fun on-brand stage, but an even better idea is the Bubble Bowl. Yup, that same one from the Band Geeks episode paired with the best stage music in this game, Sweet Victory. We'll have to make up for that one Super Bowl performance. Let's not talk about it. Anyway, it'll be a SpongeBob spin on the King's Arena stage. It's about time we bring in some in-game commentary with this pair of assist fighters, the realistic Fishhead and Perch Perkins. Instead of, assisting, they'll be on the sidelines reporting the action. It'll be just as epic as a Pokemon Stadium announcer with some roast sprinkled in.
Congratulations!
For an item, we have a set of Squidward's art from the episode Artist Unknown, featuring the marble slab SpongeBob gets to know on a more personal level. You can use this as a weapon or simply make a jaw-dropping sculpture by hitting it. There's also the epic Bold and Brash, which you just have to admire, and Squidward's nose that you can stick on any character for them to be real art. If your blood pressure spikes every time you're behind the wheel, you'll definitely relate to this next fighter.
Mrs. Puff!
We finally have Mrs. Puff joining the roster, and I already feel bad for her. She has a gauge for her stress level, and as she gets more involved in combat, this meter fills up. When it finally does, she blows up for a brief period. This makes her unable to attack, but also makes her immune to incoming attacks while she's in this state. It's meant to diffuse the tension of battle and icing out opponents. Being a teacher, she'll bring her school supplies to fight. A signature move I can see her having is the Good Noodle Star. She'll slap them on players as a smash attack. I think she should have regular slaps as a jab too. But looking at her character design, Mrs. Puff doesn't have much reach, so she'll be more of an up-close brawler. In her losing animation, I can see her profusely sweating on loop with this line.
Oh, Neptune.
For other appearances, we can have her without a wig, deflated Mrs. Puff, and her jail outfit, which would honestly go so hard. It's safe to say that Mrs. Puff has wanted to run over some students before, one in particular, so now you can with a boatmobile. She can summon her own as a side special, and as a bonus, it'll be available as an in-game item. In her final smash, Mrs. Puff loses her cool and inflates into a massive wrecking ball pufferfish, swinging like a pendulum to crush enemies. Gilliam, aka Incidental 116, aka the Snail Doctor, joins to patch things up as a healing assist trophy. While he's mainly there to heal the fighter who activated him, he can use his medkit to protect himself. And don't let those spaghetti arms fool you, he's pretty strong. For a stage, we're bringing in Mrs. Puff's boating school. It'll be a long platform like the F-Zero GX one, where there'll be multiple students taking their driver's exam on course as the battle flies above. Be careful not to land on course so you don't get hit by these student drivers. Squilliam isn't the only stuck-up fighter in this row.
Kevin C. Cucumber!
There was a time when he was the leader of the Jelly Spotters, so that's the Kevin we're bringing in. He's a character you love to hate like Bubble Bass. But even worse, Kevin's one of those guys who humiliates their friends for his own gain. To start, let's give him a jellyfish net as his primary weapon, but since he's pretty useless on his own, he'll summon the Jelly Spotters to help him as a special attack. For a healing move, Kevin uses his own brand of jellyfish ointment. He has a surprisingly high tolerance for pain, so Kevin won't be an easy kill. As a losing screen, let's have him cower with fear as his crown, which are actually tentacles, gets ripped off. Since his showdown with SpongeBob was on Jellyfish Fields, now's a good time to mention this as the next stage. This is easily a top 5 stage because of its vibrant colors, the variety of cute jellyfish that swim by, watch out for their stings, and of course the Jellyfish Jam as stage music. With his final smash, Jellyfish Hunter, Kevin, being his Delulu self, calls on a horde of jellyfish which covers the screen, zapping everyone in sight. For an assist trophy, we're bringing in Mary and her mother, the Chocolate Lady, in her trademark wheelchair. They have no tactical advantage because they'll be providing comic relief in their nostalgic discussion over chocolate, casually strolling along the stage oblivious to the fight. And since we've talked about it so much, let's add that sweet, sweet chocolate as an item. This gives players a speed boost. We're about to hit the final row, but the intensity is at an all-time high with this second to last challenge. In this timed sequence, you'll have to complete your delivery route for the Krusty Krab pizza. You'll first face this truck that has no problem driving through you, so you've got to protect yourself the only way you can by destroying it. As the weather becomes extremely dangerous, Squidward grows furious since you won't let go of that darn pizza. You'll then have to get through him to continue your journey solo. We'll finally have the orange fish, who after not getting his Diet Dr. Kelp, which he didn't even order, wants to square up. And since you've already beaten Squidward's tentacles, it's now up to you to defend your honor. And remember, this is also a race against the clock, so you may crash out the same way SpongeBob did. In case I haven't covered your favorite character, there's still hope with this next batch of final surprises.
Dirty Bubble.
Being the floatiest character in the game, that's his defining quality, as he can float around for a long time. This makes the Dirty Bubble the best when it comes to recovery, but he's so painfully light since he's a bubble with almost zero defense. The Dirty Bubble also bites onto players for an absorption ability, stealing their health and their moves Kirby style. He'll capture enemies by landing on them, sucking them in, and dealing damage, with even more being done the longer they stay trapped. The most cheese tactic with the Dirty Bubble is absorbing the players, then floating off stage as they're inside, so make sure you wiggle out to save your life. As a variant, let's bring in the Clean Bubble. In his final smash, he expands to a colossal Dirty Bubble, trapping all opponents inside and bouncing them around the screen before exploding. A DLC you probably weren't expecting is Nosferatu. He'll make the lights flicker on and off, disrupting the match flow. Each time the lights go off, opponents mysteriously have some health drained. For an item, let's bring in the Kelp Shake, causing consumers to grow fuzzy kelp. This one's a simple cosmetic change. Get ready for another royal fighter joining the fight.
Princess Mindy.
This wholesome sea creature would definitely be an underrated fighter. Her moves are more unpredictable than some of the other fighters on the roster, making Mindy all the more exciting to play. Even though she's the daughter of King Neptune, they don't have much in common aside from both being mer people. Is that a thing? Mindy, being petite, would be more agile and weaker than her father. She's set to take over as Queen of the Sea, so let's give her a crown attack to match. Like King K. Rool, Mindy uses this as a projectile. They add to her nerdy personality, but let's also have Mindy use her glasses as a reflect move. She can send a seahorse carriage forward like Zelda's down special, the Phantom Slash. Mindy claims to have magic in the movie, and while that isn't necessarily true, we can make that happen in-game with similar Zelda moves. In Princess Mindy's final smash, Sea Creature Commander, she calls upon all creatures of Bikini Bottom to stampede across the stage, trampling through enemies. Since she used seaweed to turn these boys into men, it'll have the same effect in-game. Anyone wearing her seaweed grows in size and gains a strength boost. Another compassionate character who's also a surprising pick for a fighting game is Grandma Squarepants. She'll come in as DLC, though her signature attacks gotta be the forehead kisses of death. She'll also have a stash of cookies ready to be thrown. After facing off this royal, it's time to encounter something much, much wilder.
Sea Bear.
This part piranha, part bear is an extremely aggressive fighter. With poo-poo range, you'll need to get in close and take the fight to your opponents. Its main weapon has gotta be its pointed teeth for ripping players to shreds. Since they're such wild creatures, we can give the sea bear a rage-filled forward charge, but they'll have some idle frames after, giving patient players the advantage. Thankfully, the sea bear also has pretty bad verticality, making it easier to avoid their attacks. Based on the 3 that we saw in the camping episode, we can have a brown version, green, and lighter green. For the sea bear's final smash, everyone is grouped up in a chalk-drawn oval. Not only do you have to face the wrath of the sea bear, the sea rhinoceros comes to battle as the two dart back and forth. Another fighter that's like the sea bear is our assist trophy, the Alaskan bullworm. It makes a quick appearance burrowing through the map like a freight train, leaving destruction in its path. The best way to fight this one is by not fighting it, just let it pass. Or wearing the #1 helmet. For protection against the sea bear and any others is this piece of chalk. Upon activating it, you'll have to trace a circle drawing. Making a perfect circle grants you immunity for a brief period, but a non-perfect circle lowers your defense. Coming up, we have another wild animal mixed with royalty.
King Jellyfish.
He's He's made appearances in many SpongeBob video games in the past, so it makes sense that he's part of this one too. The King Jellyfish wields electric tentacles and can also shoot, well, electricity. We'll draw inspiration from Smash's electric Pokemon for his moveset. Borrowing from Battle for Bikini Bottom, he'll also have this beam ability for damaging opponents who get too close. Watch out for this final smash, the King Jellyfish Sting. In a flash, he unleashes a massive electric shock, paralyzing everyone before they go flying off stage. I saved the regular fish as a DLC fighter, specifically 3 of them grouped together. They'll be able to zap players as well with more mobility than the King. I can also see them combining forces to charge up an even more damaging attack. And as a passive, every time the 3 land a fully charged smash, players experience a slight delay in their attacks for the rest of their stock. So unless you're a Wi-Fi warrior, this won't be a good time. I've hinted at this throughout the video, but it's time to make the jellyfish net an item for everyone. It reminds me of the beam sword in Smash with the way it'll function, but being that it's a net, it also has a 1 in 3 chance of grabbing your opponent with the ability to throw them around. Alright, before taking on our final challenge, no SpongeBob roster would be complete without this next fighter.
Gary!
He's SpongeBob's beloved pet, Patrick's first cousin, and our favorite snail. Gary is really a jack of all trades, having many talents and storing so many items in his shell, he can use these objects for attacks. For example, remember how he tied SpongeBob's shoes for him? Well, that's because he wears shoes too, so Gary could bring these out as a down air stomp. He also stores a record player in there, which could play a lullaby, putting nearby players to sleep. I would never want anyone to hurt Gary, but if you do, you'll hear his variety of meows every so often.
What do you think, Gary?
Let's not forget about a slime trail he leaves behind for slowing enemies. As a taunt, Gary takes off his shell. It's an awkward moment for everyone. And as different versions of Gary, let's bring in Snelly, Annette, Mary, and the first winner of the snail race, Larry Luciano. In a silly final smash, we'll enter Gary's dream where he speaks, giving everyone an intellectual lesson before his library explodes, bringing the fight back to reality. For our DLC, we'll bring in other members of the Squarepants family into the game. Harold and Margaret playing together as one fighter. Then we have Blackjack, the muscular convict, who'd be the strongest of the family members. And Stanley, most notable for his height and klutz behavior, has high evasiveness and reach. As a deserving last item, the magic conch has to be in this game. It can be used as a whip with its pull string, and every time it hits someone, there'll be a response coming from its speaker. The more hits, the stronger it becomes, because despite being a toy, it's incredibly powerful.
Should I have the spaghetti or the turkey?
Neither.
Oh.
And for a stage, it's fitting to use the good old pineapple. Fighting in front of it, the time of day gradually changes. There will be a lot of activity happening around the house, and since we're going through all seasons, there will never be a dull moment with the stage. I mean, it can even come alive. Choose your fighter carefully, because this final battle is the hardest of them all. You're facing off with the International Justice League of Super Acquaintances at the same time, featuring the Quickster, who can run real quick, Captain Magma with his cry,
Krakatoa!
His miniature volcano erupts, spewing lava everywhere. Think you've had enough? Well, there's still Elastic Waistband, who can stretch his limbs for some stinging attacks. And finally, Miss Appear, who can turn invisible. Unlike their battle against evil, this team functions like the Avengers in Endgame, uniting for one epic showdown. Think about it. The Quickster will keep pressuring you while you fight off Elastic Waistband's swift, powerful swipes. And don't forget Captain Magma's lava, which not only burns, but leaves lingering damage. You can't even see Miss Appear, which now that I think about it, is a bit OP. So her invisibility would work like Wraith from Dead by Daylight, where she's partially invisible. Just talking about this is a mouthful, so who knows how you'll manage to take them down? Besides, you know, using them against each other. After all, everything is based on a show, so we've seen how it plays out. And hey, defeating them would be a sweet, sweet victory. Well, that's it for the SpongeBob Smash Bros. Crossover, from roster to challenge mode and everything in between. What do you like about this game design? And if you enjoyed this video, here's another one that YouTube thinks you'll like.